Welcome back to Cindy's Art. I've listed the supplies for this video in the description below. I don't know about you, but not every painting that I do comes out perfect and wonderful. And I have a pile of papers from paintings that I attempted and I tried and I didn't like it. Today I'm working on one of those types of paintings. So when I started this off, I want to slow this video down. I'm going to give you a little bit of description. If you enjoy it, please be sure to like, comment, or subscribe. But see this paper here? Down below, this white chunky stuff is called watercolor ground. And then up top, I had a little bit of watercolor ground on it. It adds texture to the paper, and it can give me some really good creative foundations for me to do a watercolor painting. Well, I put a little bit of paint on it, I didn't like it, and I set this picture aside for a year. So I pulled it out again and I thought, you know what, let's look at how to correct mistakes. And that's what we're going to do with this painting. So I decided to start off by wetting down my sky again. And I am adding in some very specific colors: ultramarine blue, permanent violet, tiny bit of neutral, and some cerulean blue. And I'm just recreating the sky. I do not have a reference photo. This is something where when I play with watercolor ground, I'm being messy, I'm being intentionally loose because I want to see what I can come up with. It's a great way to paint. I am a very detailed and tight painter, and I enjoy that, but sometimes I just want to throw it all aside and I just want to play and do something very creative. So I started off with that sky, and as I looked at it, I decided to darken it up, and that's where you saw me add in those dark colors. Well, down below here, horizon blue, ultramarine blue, there's some phthalo blue, and some peacock in here too. These colors are phenomenal, and all I'm doing is throwing this on top of this watercolor ground that's down below. So as you see me paint, you see these beautiful splashes of water for the ocean. That's the watercolor ground. Watercolor ground is phenomenal to add texture. And if you don't see what to do with the painting, do what I did, set it aside for a while. I pulled it out later, and here we are, probably about 6 months later. So as I worked on this ocean, I remembered that, you know, the lower part of waves right smack underneath them is where the darks are. So I layered in some nice dark colors. I'm working a lot of wet on wet. I didn't let this dry much in between. I got my foundational colors in, and then I went ahead and I stepped back from it by letting it dry, and then I looked at, you know, what can I paint next. In this painting, you're going to see me spray right here. What I'm spraying actually is granulation. I put some granulation liquid in a squirt bottle and I put it on here. And the reason why is because it's going to cause my ocean to granulate. That means that the pigment is going to separate out a little bit more and it's going to create this cool texture. So I let that dry when I finished adding that granulation in. And then I grabbed a red watercolor pencil, which you see right here, and I'm sketching out a little tiny sailboat. And when I go to paint this sailboat, as I add water onto this area, that watercolor pencil is going to disappear. So you do have an option of drawing with watercolor pencils as well as pencils, but sometimes I want to make sure that those lines do not stay and they lift off. So that's what I did. For the most part, this picture is done. All I have to do is look at a few final details to see if I'm given enough of the impression of the waves, the distance, the sailboat, and so I'm only touching in a tiny bit of details with that. I decided to add some of an ocean spray on top of what I've got with this watercolor ground, and I simply did that by dipping a toothbrush, of all things, into my gouache, and then I use this little plastic card to rub that toothbrush across it and it splatters. So this is another way that you can splatter in a painting, and I love it because it gave that ocean spray look to it. Then I went down and I decided at the bottom I wanted to add some rocks. I used a little bit of neutral. I did use a little bit of burnt sienna in here, which is a reddish tone. I only used a little bit. This painting predominantly, this painting is really more about the blues than it is about having a brown added in. So keeping a neutral and adding a tiny bit of blue in that neutral color plus a little bit of the sienna, I was able to pull that off and just to add a touch a bit of rocks down below. And then you can see as this is finishing off, that sailboat really adds focus. So we started off with this horrible looking piece of paper that had a sky that honestly, it didn't look that great, but I could set that aside. Months later, I could see what I needed to add into this picture, and then thought of the sailboat. I tried it, and I felt like it really came out. After I took a break from this painting and then looked at it again, I decided to add a little bit of this Peacock Blue mixed with Cerulean into the waves. And it just created a little bit more depth. It helped separate out some of those waves. I don't need to do a lot of detail, but I wanted to add a little bit of extra in there. I love those colors. I am addicted to the blues that are inside of the ocean. So anyway, that is it for me today. Be sure to hit like if you enjoyed this video. I will end this by adding a few videos similar to this if you'd like to try some more. I've got some wonderful seaside pictures. You can follow me on Patreon, and you can also become a member of my channel to help support the work that I'm providing for people for free. And I have so appreciated being with you today, and we'll see you next time.